We are the Liberty Intelligence Organization Network.
And this is our daily report where I, your host, Ricky Phillips, am going to be going over a bunch of important news stories from today. And today is Monday, January 20th, 2014. And I got a bunch of news to cover today, just a little overview here to start off with. I'm going to start today's show with some health and wellness news, going over some recent developments in the arena of GMO. After that, I'm going to go to some gun news, although it's not really some gun news, but it's related to the Second Amendment and some of the craziness that's been going on surrounding it. And then I'm going to switch gears into some short, brief economic news, but very vital and very important. And following that, for the conclusion of the show, I'm going to be going over a bunch of articles that have to deal with the possibility and the potential of world war. Now, I do want to mention to people that, as always, for my videos, because I'm using a crappy cell phone camera, I'm trying to speak a little bit louder, but you might have to turn the volume up. I was watching some of my videos today, and the volume's a little bit low, so you might have to turn the volume up there a little bit. I'm going to try to speak a little bit louder when possible. A lot of times I film late at night, so I don't want to wake people up, so I'm not too loud, but at the moment, I can speak freely. Now, all that being said, let me start off by hitting the health and wellness news that I've got. I got two articles, both dealing with GMO. For those of you who don't know, GMO is genetically modified organisms, and a number of studies have proven they can be very detrimental to your health. So the first headline here is, Truth About the Seralini Rat Tumor GMO Study Explodes. Now, the rat tumor GMO studies, again, there's been more than one. It's been performed in France and in Russia and a bunch of different other places by a bunch of different other scientists. But this one's going to be looking at one scientist in particular, and that is Giles Eric Seralini. Now, in 2010, he conducted a study in which he fed rats GMO in the form of Monsanto's Roundup Ready corn. And some of those rats eventually developed tumors, cancerous tumors growing in their bodies. The study was originally published in a journal called Food and Chemical Toxicology, but was later retracted after the journal faced criticism from big biotech firms, like Monsanto and others who, make GMOs. So when this article came out that said GMOs might be leading to tumors, the study put out the information because it was from a reputable scientist doing a reputable research. He didn't plagiarize. It was all legitimate. And the only reason they retracted it was because they got criticized from the big biotech industries. Now, of course, the big biotech industries are probably big funders, financial donors, and probably offer a lot of the information that goes into a journal like Food and Chemical Toxicology. So they probably have a little bit of sway to get that retracted, to get this article talking about Giles Eric Seralini's study, which showed that rats eating GMO develop tumors. Now, the journal claimed that the reason the Seralini study was retracted was because he used a specific type of rat that is prone to developing tumors, regardless of GMO, is what they were saying. They're saying, so because he used these rats, and he only used 10 of them, he only used 10 rats of this specific species, we had to retract the study because it wasn't good enough for our standards. Well, the funny thing is, the same journal, Food and Chemical Toxicology, 8 years before this, had published the same exact study, 10 rats of this specific species, except the only difference was instead of it being performed by Giles Eric Seralini, it was performed by Monsanto. So Monsanto did the same exact research, with the same exact study criteria, 10 rats of this specific species, fed them GMO, and their study showed that none of the rats developed tumors. GMO is perfectly safe. Fast forward 8 years to 2010, Giles Eric Seralini does his thing, the same exact. He recreated the Monsanto study. All he did was redo what Monsanto did 8 years later, and the rats started to develop tumors. Now, whoop-de-doo, this is one study. That's the thing, though. This is one study. There's been tons of studies. Monsanto's study is the only one that shows that the animals fed GMOs don't develop cancerous tumors. The Russian studies show it. The French studies show it. The Japanese studies show it. the rest of the world gets that GMOs are probably one of the main contributors to the development of these cancerous tumors growing in the animals that eat them. We're animals, and we are eating the GMO too, so that's why it's such a big deal. And it's studies like this, they tried to, big agro, the biotech industries, like Monsanto, they tried to get this information shushed. They didn't want anybody to know about it. But once it got out, people started asking questions and looking more into GMO. And it's led to the big resistance movement forming today against GMO, or at least a push for GMOs in foods to be labeled so that you know what you're eating, which makes a little bit of sense. Now, continuing on through this GMO health and wellness news, Hawaii, the headline, Hawaii bans GMO biotech. Citizens cheer in excitement. Now, the mayor of Big Island, Hawaii, and I'm imagining it's just a big island. Hawaii is made up of 4 big islands, a bunch of little islands. But when they talk about this in this article, they didn't clarify it, but I'm pretty sure they're just talking about the big central island, Hawaii, not the whole state of Hawaii. But their mayor of Big Island, Hawaii, Billy Kenoi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has signed a bill that has banned biotech GMO from his island. Kenoi also encouraged community-based farming and ranching. He wants his people growing their own food and herding their own animals, and he doesn't want GMO on any of it. Now, he said all this other stuff, all this great rhetoric about, Hawaii is a beautiful land, and if anybody can appreciate, the threat that GMO poses, it's people on Hawaii, because it's our beautiful climate that could be destroyed by these genetically modified organisms, and he's got a point. But there is a shortcoming in the new bill, and that is that it still allows for GMO papaya. So it's banned all the other GMO biotech stuff except for papaya, which is it's a step in the right direction, a step towards understanding that this does pose a potential threat not only to us but to our entire environment. Because the GMOs, once they take over a specific plant species, they dominate it. And the problem with GMO is after a couple of generations, it stops producing feral seed, which could lead to, not being able to grow food anymore. Just a thought, sort of like when you eat GMO in the 3rd generation, the rats that were fed GMO, they lost the ability to produce children. They went sterile. So maybe GMOs make plants sterile, maybe GMOs make humans sterile, maybe GMOs make rats sterile. According to the biotech firms, it's perfectly fine. Just eat your GMO and be happy with it. Now, switching gears a little bit to gun news. Now, this isn't really talking about guns or Second Amendment or anything like that, but it does have to do with the craziness going on in the public school systems right now, ever since the Sandy Hook shooting, where kids are, eating a Pop-Tart and it looks like a gun, so they get suspended, or kids are going bang-bang with their fingers and they're getting suspended, and all types of other craziness. I went over a bunch of this even before I went on the short break, or really the long break, where I went over some of the craziness. Well, now in response, there's some good news coming out of this. So, I'm starting off with some pretty good news here, considering what is usually in the top stories of a day, usually focused on a bunch of bad stuff going on and a bunch of threats to our liberty. Here's a bunch of good stuff for our health and a bunch of good stuff for our children. Now, the headline here is suspension lifted from imaginary bow and arrow child. Now, a 10-year-old in Pennsylvania, he was actually going up to the teacher's desk to borrow a pencil. And one of his buddies was in the classroom. His buddy went bang bang at him, like, just joking around. And then he was up in the front, I guess, getting a pencil, and he replied by doing a fake bow and arrow thing at him. And apparently one of the other students was alarmed by this and told the teacher, which resulted in the 10-year-old child that did the bow and arrow thing. He got suspended. Well, a civil liberties group, the Rutherford Institute, they got involved and they led a bunch of protests against this thing. It's asinine that this child who did this little thing is being suspended as if he was brandishing a deadly weapon. So the suspension got lifted and he was allowed to go back to school. Now, in related news, Representative Sally Kern of Oklahoma recently introduced the Common Sense Zero Tolerance Act, which would basically protect students from being punished for brandishing imaginary or non-lethal toy weapons. Again, this is trying to counteract some of this craziness going on where kids can't just be suspended for finger guns or for playing with toy guns in their own backyard or for anything like that. It's saying, or for wearing a shirt. Like, for example, if you wore a shirt like this, you would get suspended because it's got the image of a gun on it. I don't know if people saw the shirt in the thing, but the InfoWars Come and Take It shirt. But that's how crazy it's gotten. So there's this new law, or this new bill introduced by Sally Kern of Oklahoma, would basically make it so that they couldn't just suspend kids. You know, if you wanted to suspend kids for brandishing a deadly weapon, he'd literally have to have a real weapon and have to be, you know, I'm gonna get people. So you know, it's some common sense, some real common sense, you know, thoughts here, as opposed to the brainwashing, which is the whole reason they were doing the suspension thing. As I mentioned, it's indoctrination of the youth. They're trying to get the kids to be fearful of guns so that in the future, the globalists can get the kids to vote away the Second Amendment, get the new generation. It's all about the young generation. If you get the kids to believe something, by the time all the older people are dead and gone, the kids will allow the New World Order to do what they want, because they've been brainwashed since childhood into believing that. And again, I went over a whole analogy about how it was for my open lunch policy at my school, and when I was leaving, when I was graduating, they were doing away with the open lunch policy by first denying it to the 9th graders, and then when those 9th graders become 10th graders, they still don't get open lunch, except now it's 9th and 10th grade, and then by the time those 9th graders become seniors, the whole school open lunch is gone. And nobody knows any better because nobody ever had open lunch. So a lot of people don't realize they've lost liberties because we never lived in an era where we had liberty. So you don't know what you lose if you never had it. So we're really in a struggle here. The older generations are trying to retain the liberties that they're losing. If you're in my generation or younger, you're not fighting in this information war to retain your liberty. You're fighting to get your liberties back. They were taken from you. They're gone. As a recent comment on one of my videos said, hey, you know, I applaud the effort, but hey, the U.S. is dead, buddy. And it's like, yeah, I know. Welcome to the New World Order. Now, just because the United States is dead and gone, does that mean that humanity, the ideal of an empowered individual, and the ideals of basic human liberty have to die with it? Or can we continue these ideals on and build something better in the future? You know, maybe eventually the ideals of liberty and individual freedom and individual empowerment will take over the New World Order. You know, you can't just give up because the U.S. is dead and gone. I was born into the New World Order. I never knew the United States of America. I was told what the United States of America was. I was told I was born into the United States of America. But when I actually look at it, at the evidence, I was born into the New World Order. And everybody in my generation, you were born into the New World Order. And it's successively getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So there we go with a little bit of gun news. Sorry for ranting there. Now let me switch into some economic news. The headline here is Germany has recovered a paltry 5 tons of gold from the New York Fed after 1 year. Now, basically, I want to say prior to World War II, but after World War I, because the United States was such a stable economy, because the United States had such a powerful military, and it was built up around this prosperity ideals, these ideals of liberty and freedom, and where you didn't have to worry about your wealth or your life or your property being taken away from you, a lot of countries decided they were going to store their physical gold in the United States of America, and that's how it led to the idea of Fort Knox. That's where the world keeps its gold in Fort Knox because it's the most secure facility, or so they believe. And of course, it's run by most people would assume that the New York Federal Reserve is really the heart and soul of the Federal Reserve period, and they control all this worldly gold that they're supposed to be the maintainers of. They're supposed to keep a watch on it. They're supposed to keep track of it. You know, and hold it like a bank. They're holding the gold for the rest of the world. Now, since all the recent economic collapse stuff has begun, really in 2008, it's really been going on for a while, but in 2008 it really exploded and people started freaking out about the economy. More recently, a bunch of countries have been, making mentions that they want their gold back. That gold, you remember that gold we gave you a long time ago and told you to hold on to it for us? Well, we sort of want it back now. And a lot of countries are saying this, Germany being one of the most prominent in saying, hey, where's our gold? Give us our gold back. Come on, where's the gold? So they came up with a plan that they were, over an 8-year interval between 2013 and 2020, 674 tons of gold would be returned to Germany. That's the plan they came up with, and they requested that all this, over this period of time, they get this gold. Well, last year, 2013, which should have been the first year of them receiving this gold shipment, they only got 37 tons. It's not even 5% of what they're supposed to get. By the time the 8-year interval's up, and it's definitely not enough. 37 tons a year, that would get nowhere near 674. And on top of that, only 5 tons of the 37 actually came from the New York Fed. The other, tons came from Paris. So really, they only paid back about 5 of the gold that they were originally given. Back in the, I want to say the early to mid 30s, the early to mid 1930s is when the gold was given to the Federal Reserve in the United States of America to hold on to. I could be wrong. I'm just going off memory here, and all I've got is one sheet of notes to work with. But it was something like that. So basically, they're saying that there's gold. Now, this is causing. Now, basically, they excused them. They made up an excuse, of course. They got an excuse for everything. They came up with the excuse that, well, the gold bars stored at the New York Fed, they're not like the gold bars stored at Paris. The gold bars stored at Paris are apparently melted down and molded into this London Good Delivery, LGD format, which was just the shape of the bar. And they're saying the shape of the bars in the New York Fed are the old school bars, the ones you're used to seeing in like the cartoons and on the History Channel and stuff like that. Just the basic square gold bar. Apparently this London Good Delivery is a little bit different. It's cut differently. It's shaped differently. And that's what they said. Oh, we only took 5 tons of the New York Fed gold because it wasn't shaped the same as ours. And of course, what difference does that make? You can melt it down and remold it into whatever shape you want once you got it. So of course that was just their excuse. But nonetheless, it created concerns that maybe there is no gold. Maybe the reason the New York Fed didn't return the gold is because they don't have it. And of course, if you look back at it, there's a good probability that a lot of this gold was being used to, of course, what's the government been up to? All this secret stuff, buying secret weapons, buying secret drugs, funding terrorist groups, all sorts of things could be going on with the gold that is, of course, gold from other countries that who knows what's really going on with it. So I don't know if it's there or not. I don't know what happened to the gold, but people have been saying this for a long time. The gold in Fort Knox is gone. The gold in Fort Knox is gone. And this only reassures it. Germany says, hey, we want our gold back, 674 tons to be precise. Well, here's 5 tons. Now move along, please. And it's like, wait a minute. Where's the other 672 tons of our gold? And it's like, well, sorry, all we got 5. Whoops. It baffles the mind almost. And of course, the Germans are very upset by this. They're very, very angry that we're holding their gold and not giving it back to them. Now, switching gears, this is going to be the big news topic for the day. And before I hit it, I want to do a quick time check. So I got about 12 minutes to go through this news. This is news related to the potential or the possibility that World War III could erupt. And all these news stories are going to somehow relate, and I'm going to do my best in the 10 minutes that I have to try and connect all of these different news stories together so that you can have a better understanding and a better overall view of what's going on in the world. The first headline, CIA-connected terror group issues threat ahead of Russian Olympic Games. Now, last month in Volgograd, which is a city in Russia, there were these terrorist bombings. And a terrorist group known as Vilayat Dagestan, they've claimed responsibility for the bombings in Volgograd. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm trying my best here. Anyway, this Vilayat Dagestan group is, of course, an Islamic terrorist group, and they are loyal to a man named Shamil Basayev. And he's a warlord who was trained by the CIA in the 1980s. So basically, here you go. CIA-connected terror group. They've claimed responsibility for these Volgograd things. They're loyal to a guy who was trained by the CIA and was funded by the CIA. And they vowed in a recent video update that they put up where they took credit for the bombings and said, we have a present. They said, we're going to give a present. And that's the actual quote, a present. Of course, they mean, a bombing or an attack of some sort. We have a present for President Putin and for the tourists that come to Russia for the Olympic Games. They said, we got a present for them. Now, Putin has responded ever since the initial terrorist bombings, and of course, this all the way goes back to Bandar Bush, who's really Bandar al-Sultan, I think, and he's basically the head of Saudi Arabian intelligence. Back during the whole Syria conflict thing, he made a threat to Putin. He said, if you don't back off of Syria, because Russia's backing the Syrian government. But Bandar said basically to Putin, if you don't back off of Syria, there will be terrorist attacks at the Olympic Games. So he made that open threat way back in September, October of last year. Then these first couple of attacks happened at the end of December, and in about a month from now, or less than a month, in a couple of weeks, the Winter Games are supposed to begin in Sochi, Russia. And of course, they're saying we're going to launch terror attacks just like Bandar Bush, and the only reason we call him Bandar Bush is because they had close ties to the Bush family. The HWW Bush, that family of Bushes. And basically he said, we're going to attack, if you don't stop supporting Syria, we're going to attack the Olympic Games. Russia said, we're not going to stop supporting Syria. So, of course, they're going to unleash their terrorist Al-Qaeda on the Russian Olympic Games. And, of course, why does this matter? Why is this really important? How could this how could this lead to the possibility of world war? Well, it says it right in the title, CIA-connected terror group. The Russians know this. The Russians have their own spies and their own intelligence organizations. They know that the United States of America funds and trains most of the Islamist terrorists, and most notably Al-Qaeda. They know that we act like Al-Qaeda is our enemy, but really Al-Qaeda is just another branch to our military. They're a secret shadow army that the United States government uses in darkness to carry out various things. Of course, it's a catch-all. You can use it to attack another country, and you can use it to attack yourself and then claim you have to take away people's liberties to protect them from this attack. So it serves dual purpose. But basically, that's what's going on now. It could lead to world war because the Russians know this, so they know if they get hit with terror attacks, what's to stop the Russians from just coming out and blatantly saying, we know that the West and the United States of America funds these terror groups. We're going to consider these terror attacks as military attacks from the West, and we are now declaring a defensive war against the United States of America. Boom. That's how it has to happen. And how did I get that idea? Well, the globalists sort of showed it to me in a video game from back in 2003. It's called Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and that was the storyline for it, where a terrorist group has an American soldier in it, and they kill the American soldier, blow up a building, put the American soldier's body there, and then the American soldier gets blamed as this terrorist group, and Russia links terrorism to the United States of America and justifies a war that the world backs in the video game. Or the storyline for the video game. So that just shows you a war game scenario for how they can kick off a world war. Now, in additional news, it's connected to the fact that we run the real terrorist groups, and when I say that, I don't mean like the good people in the United States of America. I mean like the shadow New World Order operatives. They run, in the name of the United States, the Al-Qaeda groups, such as the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, recently, the headline here, DHS gave Muslim Brotherhood VIP treatment and no TSA pat-downs when they flew into the U.S. Now, they actually got a directive, an order straight from the State Department that said, members of Muslim Brotherhood were not to be frisked, you're not to check them for explosives, and you're not to check their luggage when they fly into the U.S. Of course, that's just how, that would be something they would say if they were about to stage a terror attack. They would say, don't search these guys, just let them come through, and of course that's how you sneak the guy through with the bomb, or to hijack the airplane, or to do whatever. That's the order you issue. So, it just goes to show you how they're testing the waters here. They did those initial bombings. They're testing Russia's response. Here they're testing, can we order the TSA to let guys that look like terrorists go through without checking them? Well, apparently they can. Now, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, go away from the Al-Qaeda stuff, although that's involved with it too. Again, this is all connected to the possibility of world war. Switch gears here over to the South China Sea, where a lot of stuff's being built up over there because China's showing increased aggressiveness. And China's actually claiming land claims that it does not have. It's breaking international law by doing so. The headline, this is out of Zero Hedge. Philippine Navy adds to regional arms buildup as China words and deeds escalate. Now, the Philippine Navy hopes to add 2 more warships to its fleet as other Southeast Asian countries are building up their militaries in response to China's aggressive nature, or aggressive stance. The new naval acquisitions for the Philippines would come from the fresh U.S. military assistance plan, which was announced last month by Secretary of State John Kerry. So, of course, the New World Order is using all their players to push the world towards this brinksmanship, towards this World War III scenario by, we're giving weapons and funding to Southeast Asian countries as China gets built up. China's being built up by the New World Order. They've moved all the industry and infrastructure there. They're playing all the sides off against each other. And this is just another example of how it's going down. Now, this is all really escalating for the past 5 years as China's been claiming more and more of the islands in the South China Sea. They're also claiming that other countries aren't even allowed to fish in the sea without getting approval from Beijing, which is totally against international laws, totally outrageous claims. They're even claiming, islands that are owned by other countries. It's just totally crazy. But China's leaders are being, boasting that they're the most powerful military force in the area, and the only military force on the planet that can compete with them is the United States. And they even go so far as to boast that they can match the U.S. by seizing opportunities. And that's quote, seizing opportunities. So it's stuff like that that's freaking out the other countries because they're like, wait a minute, our countries might be seized in the opportunity to get more resources or more land or more soldiers for the Chinese. So this is basically the Philippines are just responding to, they're building up a bigger military and they're forming unofficial alliances with their neighbors. Now, final bit of news. I just got to do a quick time check. All right, final bit of news here. The headline: Expert: China preparing to target U.S. aircraft carriers. Now, a military expert in China, his name's Chen Hu, he told the state-run news media over in China, which is China Central Television, he told them that China's developed this new hypersonic missile vehicle that was designed specifically to target U.S. aircraft carriers. Now, it's called the WU-14, and what makes it so powerful is it travels so fast that it can penetrate through missile defense systems. It just goes right through them. Now, of course, this comes after really over a month, really over a year of China making sort of aggressive threats. Again, they're threatening their neighbors in South China Sea, but they're also making broad threats to the United States of America. Now, I'm going to list some of those. Last month, China boasted that their new aircraft carrier fleet matched anything the U.S. had to offer. So they're saying our aircraft carrier fleet is as good as the U.S. military. We're ready. If they want to go to war with us, if we have to start a war with them, we can take them, and we can at least match them. Who's going to win? Who knows? But they're saying we're on equal level now with the United States of America. Now, in addition, last month, the Chinese president encouraged the People's Liberation Army, which of course is just the Chinese military, with a fancy name, with a fancy Orwellian name, like the People's Liberation Army. It's really just Chinese military. The Chinese president encouraged the Chinese military to prepare for war with the United States of America. Now, and then in addition to all that, China recently released an in-depth plans to target U.S. military positions and U.S. cities with tactical nuclear weapons launched for submarines. So basically China's saying, look, we're going to be aggressive towards all of our neighbors. Hey, U.S., if you want to mess with us, we just thought we'd let you know we built these super fast missiles designed to blow up your aircraft carriers. We built up a giant naval fleet that's just as powerful as anything you've got. Oh, and by the way, we've already planned out where we're going to send our nukes if we have to launch them. So that's basically what China's saying, and of course this is all escalating to World War III. Now, if I got the time, which doesn't look like I do, so I'll just have to pick this up in a future daily report, since I'm running out of time here, and it really sucks because I had some good points I wanted to make. But unfortunately, I'm all out of time, so that about does it. Today was Monday, January 20th, 2014. I was your host, Ricky Phillips, and this is the Liberty Intelligence Organization Network. As always, I encourage everyone to stay strong, to stay free, to stay safe, and to stay informed.